I'm nearing the last few pages of my sketchbook, which is always a challenge to fill. So today you are going to help me fill this book with an art prompt so that I can move into a new book. The art prompt is aliens attacking a spaceship, which is interesting and a little bit of a challenge. So I'm pulling some objects from around my desk to help inspire me. As much as I love doing sci-fi, it is always something that I struggle with drawing because of how metallic things tend to be for space and other entities. I really like to draw more fantasy things, so I tend to stick to a lot of what's going on in the fantasy world. For this one, I decided to choose an ink bottle, and I started with kind of one of the obvious shapes that ideas that come to mind with the ink, which is the classic large base and jet propulsors to the back, and then you have the nozzle for the front. And for the second one, I thought maybe more of a satellite shape would be interesting, kind of thinking about how the space station is up in our orbit, and like how there are different pieces that are surrounding it. I think this one is my most favorite out of the three designs that I make, because I like how I pulled some of the cap to have an antenna and then gave more texture to the design than compared to some of the other ones that I ended up drawing. I like the idea of it having its own energy core outside of the spaceship, kind of like how some designs are run off of like sun or solar power that is contained into one strong beam. With these drawings, I try not to hold on to too much attachment of getting things right or trying to make it clean. I used to get really focused in on that, and that prevented me from finishing a lot of my artwork in the past. And now I focus more on just having fun and being in the moment. So for this last one, I decided to switch it around a little bit and have the base of the ink bottle that I'm using as reference for these ships to be the front of the ship instead of being the back. Since the cone top part has a natural point to it, I thought it would be good to kind of repeat that along the back end for the jet propulsion idea for this spaceship. That way it looks like it would have more momentum going forward, especially since the front has a more heavier base. It looks like something that would move a lot slower than the other designs, even given the satellite design's unique shape. One thing that I've found to help things feel more science-y or science fiction-like is to add a lot more extra lines to give it a more gritty feeling to the piece. For some reason, that always makes it stand out more in its own way. Maybe that's because most science fiction tends to not like a lot of organic shapes used in it. For the next part of this drawing prompt, I need to draw the aliens. And what better way to draw an alien than to use an alien reference like Stitch? I have this lip balm container that has been sitting on my desk because it's too cute to throw away, and I thought it would be good to kind of expand on that creature design. Stitch was, after all, meant to be kind of a war creature, one that is meant to destroy entire planets with his very being. And what if there was actually somebody who expanded upon his own genus and made him into the monster that he was really supposed to be, which would not be our adorable Stitch today, but it's still fun to think about. So you still are going to have that cute design when working and drawing such a creature, especially since I am just going with what I see for this kind of Tsum Tsum lip balm thing. I always tend to like creatures that have longer bodies. It's kind of something that's left over from my love of dragons and cats. Long cat makes me laugh. And so I tend to see that kind of style, the lizard's body popping up in all sorts of different designs that I create when I'm just making something up off the fly. There's something about the lankiness of a creature that has a lot of long body mass to work with that's just very fun to draw. I also thought it was really fun to maybe give him a couple of multiple arms, because I think he did have several more arms in the original form than the one that he took as a dog on Earth. It's funny to think about how he has become one of my favorite Disney characters. One, because he's a little easier to find than Esmeralda, who is my absolute favorite character. But two, also, I was on a cruise where they happened to have someone walking as Stitch around, and he did a Stitchy Stitch dance for me, and that made me laugh and made the experience just even more special. So that is how he became one of my favorite characters. Also, there's something so fun about drawing creatures with claws. You get to make them all pointy and sharp, and in many ways, you can make them uniquely their own shape compared to the rest of the body of the creature that you are working with. So there we have it. It is our long cat Stitch, who is going to be the terror of this attack on this space station. We are also going to give this creature some extra lines to give it a little bit more rough grittiness to it. It's one of my favorite things to do to really give a bit more personality to a drawing than simply drawing a straight line. They say the more lines that you draw, the creepier the picture becomes, because there's something unsettling about having a oddly rendered or detailed piece that has a lot of lines in it. Especially if you're wanting to create something unsettling. You see that done a lot in action scenes where they're wanting to create something that has a heavier impact, or if they're wanting to make somebody seem even more frightening in animation. I know that you can see that a lot in like Junji Ito's work, or in the work of the guy who created Hellboy. I forgot his name. I think it was Mike Mignola. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But yeah, you'll see a lot of that kind of contrast with the heavier lines. Now that we have both of these concepts drawn, let's try and put them together. I decided that it would be best to zoom in on the piece rather than to draw them separately. I couldn't really figure out how they would both work together, since he's supposed to be attacking the spaceship. And I guess I could have done the interior of the spaceship, but that would have defeated the purpose of me drawing the space station spaceship in the different pieces, and I really wanted to use what I created. So we're having two of these creatures outside in space, beginning to attack the space station, which now has a window to it, so we can see the humanoid creatures being frightened by what they have seen. So let me set the stage for you. You are out on patrol tonight, observing the communications tower and just enjoying the relaxing view of the stars, when you hear a sudden clunk and clank and scratching along the metal of the outside. You look around, pausing for a second, thinking that it might be another piece of debris scattering across the surface of the space station, as it were happened to be. And then you see movement out in the corner of your eye, passing along the edge of the ring of the spaceship. You track the movement for a moment, thinking that it is nothing, until you see a glinting, smiling face staring at you through the window. The teeth are sharp and the claws are long. You would even think it was cute if it weren't for the hunger that glinted in its eyes, its fur covered in frost and ice that has solidified after years of being in space, and its cold, icy grip. At first you only see one, and then you see another skitter across the top, leaning its face into the window as it stares into your soul, its hunger evident. The space station was not meant to deal with attackers that are this close, and you hope that the shields and defense mechanisms are enough to prevent them from getting in. But only time will tell as they crawl across the edges and outer surface of the space station. You hope that you can be safe, or at least safe long enough for reinforcements to arrive to help you deal with such a creature. But you never know what could happen in the next 15 minutes. For space is a very deadly place for everyone. Or at least those are some of the thoughts and musings that I have while creating such a piece. I hope I didn't scare you too much with such a shiver story. It's amazing how just adding a little bit of color can really help add to the scene of a piece. I'm just using some leftover colors that are on my palette and letting them mix together to kind of create its own unique color that is kind of a green-blue for the space station. And we kept the blue for the not Stitch aliens here. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me as I go through and finish up my sketchbook. I'm probably going to do more of these in the future, so don't forget to subscribe and follow me on my various social media, where we will deal with these other pages later. Thanks again. Bye.